we're in the Ryder Cup season. And I figure for a lot of our American audience, getting a British guy on here is maybe it's a great idea. He's Liam Robinson. Liam, you have come highly recommended, man. We had all sorts of folks reach out to us saying you got to get him on. And I'm embarrassed it's taken me so long. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, man. I'm really looking forward to getting to talk golf with you for a little while.
I'm surprised I got you off the practice tee or off the DP World Tour.
There
Think by
you go.
your
Look,
word how
nice
busy
week off
you
this
are.
week.
And a week off. I love it.
Nice week off this week.
Okay, before we dive into what we can learn from some of these Ryder Cuppers, you and I were chatting off air.
Hmm.
I said to you, because look, I'm so old, I've been in golf instruction since 1996. The more time I've spent around the elite golfers and the club golfers trying to get better, the more I realize that the concepts are all the same. And what the pros are doing is no different from the amateurs, yet the amateurs think, man, there must be some secret to it. You're out there all the time. Please fire a hole in that theory for us.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of similarities. I think different people have different percentages of those things that maybe the pros are doing. But obviously speed becomes a big part of it also. There's not many guys out there now that aren't up there when it comes to club speed and ball speed. But when it comes to just the general techniques, I think I'm not really doing anything crazily different on a day-to-day basis at my home range than I am when I'm at the DP World Tour events working with my professionals.
Yeah. I love that.
So
I want to quickly, because you hit speed, and I guarantee you a bunch of people's ears perked up because everyone wants to hit the thing a little farther.
yeah,
Um, let's put speed into perspective. First off, I don't think people that embark on the speed journey actually realize what a good gain in speed is, because they're hearing these crazy speeds off the world tours. But for someone like me, if I go from 100 to 105, I'm doing yeoman's work. So
absolutely.
please help put this into context so people don't so they're not chasing ghosts, if you will.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that, Mark, because I very often have guys who will make comments when they played with me, and when I was in my own playing career, that was kind of my game. I hit the ball quite a long way. So the last DP World Tour event that I played in, I was second in driving distance. So that was kind of my thing. I can kind of cruise at 128 club speed and
Oh,
those kind
bye.
of numbers. But and it does make me laugh sometimes how when I do play with guys in pro am still, or I play with members of my network and stuff. It's kind of blows my mind how they even think that those kind of numbers are really even attainable. Like that's a guy who is in the gym every day, hitting balls every single day, speed training, doing all these things he can do to kind of get every single yard out of the golf swing. Whereas, yeah, I think if you can, I think one of the biggest things when it comes to speed is I think technique is a bigger part of it than what a lot of people realize. Yeah, the amount of people that are doing speed training where they're doing amazing drills like stepping and swinging as fast as they can, and then they go onto a golf course and then they swing in a way that is actually slowing the club head down.
Yeah.
Actually blows my mind a little bit how many people do that. But yeah, I think technique's a much bigger part of it than people kind of take on, let's say. Um,
I was clapping, and that made Liam stop for a second for the folks listening on audio. A reminder, you can see this on YouTube. I want to add to that too. Because I'm out there weekly with broadcast, and you seeing
course, yeah.
they're experimenting with driver shafts almost weekly. I remember Dustin Johnson every week would have the TaylorMade guys out there fiddling with driver head shaft combinations every week,
Yeah.
no matter how well he was playing, in
Yeah.
interest in getting no left and maybe a little more energy for a little less work.
Yeah.
The equipment and the proper fitting is a big deal for speed gaining as well. Yes.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, I think I actually found it quite mind blowing this week. I was with one of my newer players this week, and he wasn't comfortable with his three wood,
Yeah.
and I couldn't believe the difference with almost identical golf swings in not just speed, but also the way the club interacted with the turf and how with the same almost the same shaft in majority of them,
Yeah.
the difference in the head makeup, the spins, the kind of speed that he was able to create was actually quite. Even me, who's had that scenario myself, I found it quite actually mind blowing. That I remember there was one club in particular, and with the same shaft as the one he'd hit before, which was amazing. Just he almost caught it heavy, and it was
Mhm.
just because of and it was because that shaft in that particular head just wasn't working the way that it did in the previous head. And but yeah, I think the equipment side of it, the more and more that you see, particularly on tour, I think you see how crazy it is what they can do with golf clubs, and where they can move it 1 yard in start line, or they can move it, and the ball speed thing. I think shaft is highly undervalued in my opinion. Um,
Yeah, we'll get to more of that too, because one Rory McIlroy here recently, oh, I don't know if it was recently, everything blurs, but he just played beautifully. And I said to him, wow, what's the difference, man? And he goes, I found a 3-wood that I can actually hit. He goes, I set this thing down on the ground and it doesn't feel like it's going to go left all day long. So I feel
yeah.
way more comfortable. So even for a Rory, this is a big deal.
Yeah, and I think going back to kind of what you said about speed and people just thinking that these things aren't attainable, like Rory, I think people think that the guys on tour just swing it perfectly at every single swing, and they have no doubts in themselves, they don't question themselves. And I think the more you're around the better players, you start realizing, even me to a degree, because I didn't play as much as maybe I would have liked it. Even I look back and I go, maybe I was a bit harsh on myself back when I used to play. Because
Right.
it's actually like you listen to their insecurities and their ups and downs. And this is, like you said, the best players on the planet are still kind of questioning, stood over a ball, where's it going to go? How am I going to feel? And yeah, the word that comes to me a lot when I have lessons is I'm looking for consistency.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, but what does that mean to you? And I think that's always a good starting point with lessons.
Well, my
Because
response,
it
my
is,
response to that question, I'd love your take. Because you're right. When you meet the new student, you're like, okay, what's the goal? And they're like, well, I want to be more consistent. And I kind of giggle behind my eyes. I
yeah,
chuckled a little bit.
exactly.
And then And then I'm like, well, here's my response to that. I'm like, your golf swing's never going to be consistent, but your reaction and your response to good and bad shots, that's where I'm looking for some consistency. I'm assuming
Yeah.
it's sort of the same ilk.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, like when it comes to the consistency side of it, and then I think the other thing as well is the way that these guys practice. Like a lot of the stuff that I do is away from a golf ball at times, and because some players might find that maybe a little bit boring,
Yeah.
or they don't get that same feel as when they flush a 7-iron down the driving range. But what I've found really interesting is the more consistent people have kind of been with their practice elements, that's helped them become a little bit more consistent. Where I think the more consistent guys, just they don't hit the ball any better, they just don't hit their bad shots as bad. And I think as you go through the levels, I just think that just speaks truer. Where Rory still probably feels at times that he has no idea where it's going, but his no idea where it's going is a little bit safer than your five handicap that comes to a lesson here this week. But yeah, I definitely think there's different things to consistency, and it's when people think they're going to come in and hit every single golf ball straight out the middle of the face, the exact same distance on a dead on a rope. That's when it becomes a little bit of a harder job that we have.
Hmm. We're going to get more to some of this, but I've been rude, Liam. I haven't really properly introduced you.
It's
So
okay.
you mentioned, you had played the game professionally for a bit. Tell folks from around the world who might not know who you are, just a little bit of your backstory, who you are.
Yeah. So I've got a little bit of a different story probably to most people. My dad was a professional football player. I went down the same route. So from the age of 18 to 20, I played professional football.
Oh yeah. Oh, who?
Yeah, I played for Coventry City.
Yeah. Come on now.
Yeah, yeah. So I played in that, and I was in a lot of the England squads from the ages of like 13 to 18 with the likes of Daniel Sturridge, Theo Walcott, Carl Walker, people like that. And then unfortunately, when I was 19, I fractured my femur.
Oy.
Um, stopped playing.
That's a
Stopped
dangerous
playing.
injury, that, huh?
Yeah, it was a weird one. It was a
Okay.
very weird one, but it was very abrupt. That was kind of the end of the days for me, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And then from there, the reason I started playing golf was because my dad played golf at the end of his football career, and we were going to go out and talk about kind of what I was going to do with myself going forwards, having to go out into the world of work, and we went for a game of golf, and I shot something like I'm pretty sure I shot something like 6 or 7 over par, which I now hadn't played golf in maybe 10 years
All right.
at this point, and he was like, "Oh, you've got." a little bit of time now where you're getting paid to kind of recover. He said, why don't you take a year and just see how good you can get? And within
Got
kind of
good quick, in other
well,
words.
yeah, within a couple of years, I was kind of down to kind of plus two, and then turned pro very quickly. Since then, I kind of won 6 times on mini tours and things like that. But I've played kind of maybe 40 to 50 times on Challenge Tour, and then maybe 5 or 6 DP events. But I'll be honest, Mark, I probably didn't have the short game you needed to play at the top. And now I'm coaching at that level. I know I didn't have that part of the game. I hit the ball as good as anybody, but just didn't really have the rest of the game to probably get to that level full time. But I guess everything happens for a reason, and I believe that experience that I've managed to have has really then helped me since I've gone into more of this coaching career more full time.
Yeah.
I think just having that ability to demonstrate, to be able to communicate in a different way, and just obviously a lot of my own exploration as a golf coach has come from me trying to be better as a player.
Okay.
Um, so I guess that, yeah, I guess that even though in the back of your mind you're like, oh, I didn't quite get to where I wanted to, I'm hoping that obviously it's going to help me get to where I want to now in coaching.
Well, look, I'm not critical of instructors, but I get to speak to a lot of them with a show and everything you're putting out on social media and the success you're having with your DP World Tour players.
Yeah,
The results speak for themselves. So
they do.
let's
Yeah.
dive in. Okay.
Okay, mate.
I'm starting here.
Okay.
Like when I played, I could hit it fine, but I didn't putt or chip or pitch as well as what I should.
Yeah.
I wish club golfers who want to improve would realize that if they tighten up their short game a little bit, they're going to slice handsome chunks of numbers off their scores. But no one takes that seriously. So you're out there on a weekly basis in the pros. Please just illuminate us a little bit.
Oh, mate, if I look around the greens and just from the couple of players that I've worked with recently, and it's just their ability, I don't think people realize how good it really is.
Hmm.
Like, if you get a tour player in a bunker, it is just like nothing I've ever seen.
Hmm.
It's ridiculous. And I'm like I said I'm a pretty good bunker player, but me hitting it pretty good is like I don't know 6 8 feet or whatever. Whereas they are, I've just yeah just even now we did a practice round last week at the British Masters and I walked a few holes with Brandon and just watching some of the things they're doing around the greens and the comfort that they do it with is just it just never looks like they're ever going to hit one outside of a couple of feet.
Yeah. Hmm.
And it's so good that they can still score to such an elite level, even if they're off with their long game. And I think that's where it's most important.
Well, that's what you said too. You're like, well, it's with your bad shots, and your bad shots are a measure of how good you are. Now, if you had a bad shot, these guys are saving more often than not, where more club golfers, when they hit a bad one, they turn it worse because they're not that good on the next one. So, in other words,
Exactly.
time spent on and around the greens is not a bad idea for people, yes?
Agree, mate, completely. Yeah, a lot of the time when it comes to these guys who, so I teach a few mini tour players and things like that too. And when I first start working with them, I'm like, right, for the next 6 rounds, I want you to put this information into this system that I send them.
Okay.
And 99% of the time, they're shooting scores. Let's say somebody shoots 2 or 3 over in a mini tour event, and then you look at their stats, and it's like they've had three putts and they're only scrambling at 25%. And you're like, well, and you want to tell me that you're not hitting
The
it good.
swing needs
It's
work,
like
yeah.
I'm like, hang on a minute. Like there's 6 shots right there, and then you're leading, and it's like you haven't hit one better shot yet today.
Yes.
I definitely agree with you. I think, but again, I don't know if I see it that way because that was the thing that cost me my career to a degree. I don't know if that's why I see it more that way. But I definitely think having a short game to lean on, especially the guys now the courses are getting so long. If they don't have the ability to get up and down around par five greens and short par fours and take advantage with a wedge in their hand, scoring all of a sudden becomes very, very tricky.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, yeah, we got the Ryder Cup upon us, and here's the reality. Match play is going to get won by some guy making a birdie putt because you can have guys putting from similar ranges most times, and it's the
Absolutely.
person that finds a way to make the putts when it means something that's going to separate, from winning the point or not winning the point.
Absolutely. And going to the putting, I think I was lucky enough to see quite close and personal last year when I started working with Brandon. He had statistically one of the best months of putting that you could ever experience. And it was
Okay.
just watching the way that they train. I think what a lot of amateurs don't do enough of, they don't focus in on the pieces that make those aspects of their game the best they can be. So when I think of putting, my brain straight away goes to, can I read a green? Do I have good pace? And can I start the ball online?
Hmm.
Whereas other people will be on YouTube, for example, watching, I don't know, should I be using a left low grip or all these kind of, they're always looking for technical solutions when they're probably going to find more advantage in learning how to read a green properly or how to start a ball online just as a skill as opposed to a technical element to it.
Love it. I absolutely love it because you're shining so much light on scoring. And yes, the reality, even with a show like this, and you and I are going to talk some golf swing momentarily,
Yeah.
but everyone wants to shoot lower. Yeah, it's one thing to hit flush shots all the time,
Yeah.
but it becomes awfully frustrating if you're hitting it very nicely and you're not getting the commensurate lowering of your golf score. It's as simple as that.
That's my golf career summed up in a sentence there, Mark.
I'll stop it. Before we uncover the
You're taking
start
me
issue.
back to some dark places.
Okay, wait, I'll stop. Okay, let's learn. You pitched me a few ideas, and I love these. All right, because in the first one, Tommy Fleetwood, look, he was the story here on the PGA Tour lately when he won the Tour Championship.
Yeah,
Mm. He's been solid the entire year. Europe's going to lean on him in the biggest way. Um,
absolutely.
and so I said to him, okay, I said to you, what should we learn from Tommy's swing?
Yeah.
And you hit me with deceleration. And I was like hearing choirs of angels because everyone's trying to go faster, but they don't realize that to go properly faster, you have to be able to slow down.
You
So hit
absolutely
us with a
do.
lesson, please.
Well, there's a couple of a lot of people kind of laugh at when I use the towels and smash bags and things like that. The main reason I do that, Mark, to be honest, is that when you increase the collision size, your body naturally wants to brace harder.
Mhm.
And bracing, so when I hear a lot of people come in and they talk about, oh, I really want to post up, but they do it very artificially. So for me, the deceleration comes from numerous places. Obviously, I need to be able to safely find the ground. That with the club face entering the ground is what decelerates the club head essentially. But my body has to have a lot of speed to be able to decelerate. But I often use the explanation like a car. So if you're driving a car at 5 miles per hour and you don't really have to put the brake on very hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas if I'm driving at 50, I have to kind of slam it on. So for me, that's why a lot of the drills I do as well are always at full speed.
Okay.
Because I believe to be able to decelerate that club efficiently, you've got to be able to carry the speed to be able to make that happen. But deceleration for me, I find it really important for players because it tends to sync a lot more things up at impact.
Okay.
It allows you to stabilize club face. So the ability to kind of decelerate the club in the ground for me is the true way of stabilizing a face. I know a lot of people talk about holding the face to do that. I often find that the energy you place on the grip when you're trying to slow the when you're pushing on the handle or holding the handle to me tends to actually feel like it almost over accelerates the club post impact because people struggle to find the turf. For me, I believe that there's a lot of this kind of angle and energy down towards the ground, and then we stabilize that through the pulling up and the club entering the turf. And I think Tommy does as good of a job as anybody I've seen in that department.
Well, it's so cool that you say that because my daughter, she's been talked about a lot on the show here recently. She's a good golfer
Yeah,
and
okay.
she has a drive. And in fact, she put a video up on it. She calls it her Fleetwood, which is
Yeah,
like imagine a shorter looking follow through.
absolutely.
She complains, she goes, it's not as short as Tommy. And I'm like, well, you got to realize how efficiently Tommy's moving to be able to cut off full speed at that place over there.
Exactly.
And it's a
There's a lot of
skill and it's a
parts.
learned skill too, yes?
It is absolutely, yeah. It's everything. There's a lot of things that have to. if you bring down Tommy Fleetwood's finish and you bring it down to impact and then transition and then backswing, there's a lot of things that have to match up for that to be able to happen. And I think, in my opinion, in the backswing, I think there's a lot of things that have been taught over the last probably 10 to 15 years, I think aren't helping people with that. Because I think when we're talking about force, obviously we're talking lateral, vertical, and rotational. I think the world to me has gone very rotational.
Brilliant.
And
Yeah.
in my opinion, possibly a little bit too much. um,
Yeah.
because when it comes to the ability, if she's trying to get that nice cut off follow through, it requires that nice lateral move in. It requires enough space in the backswing to then be able to move in. And
Yeah.
then it kind of all becomes a chain reaction from way earlier. So people see Tommy's cutoff finish. But if you try and do that from where a lot of people are trying to do it from in the backswing, the chances are they're just going to hit it way right,
Yeah. Exactly.
which is what you tend to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's amazing how a lot of people like that ideology, but there's a lot of things that have to happen for that to be able to happen. So as you said about your, as you said, it's he's moving in a way that you have to move a specific way to be able to make that happen. Is basically where I'm getting to with it.
Yeah, sure. I want to ask for a drill in a minute, but I can't help but think, here I'm talking to a great golf instructor who was a professional football, soccer player for the American audience.
Yeah,
And I'm visualizing you there in the backfield, and you see an open guy like way down the field, and you're going to hoof this thing hard, right? And you'll
yeah,
lean up to it, and then you brace with a forward leg, and that releases the energy into the kicking leg. This
absolutely.
deceleration thing, it's not just to golf. Any athletic endeavor where you're transmitting energy, there's some element of deceleration happening.
100%. Yeah. I've always said to be able to kind of go fast, you've got to be able to stop. And
Yeah.
that's it, they just come so hand in hand. And yeah, there's, if you think, you could almost speak on any sport
Yeah.
where that's happening. And that's what always kind of, so always, I struggled a lot with when I was having lessons as a player at times where I said to you when we messaged back and forth that I struggled with the kind of static nature of golf coaching initially.
Right.
I've come from a sport that's super reactive. Like, and you can imagine if you were getting me in the gym at the time, I've always been a guy that can kind of create energy quite well there. I'm the guy that can kick a football hard. I can hit a tennis serve hard. I've always had this ability to kind of generate speed, but for me, it was always quite natural. I
Yeah.
probably couldn't have explained to you until I've really dived into the golf swing as to why I could do that. But what you said just there is certainly a massive part of it.
You're a big one on drills, I've gathered by looking at your Instagram feed.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So I'm sure
absolutely.
you have a drill to teach people to decelerate. So what would the drill be?
Absolutely. So yeah, like the couple that I would always go to, I mentioned earlier about using a towel or a smash bag.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get that to a weight in which you can hit it slow the club down, but not stop the club. I often find people use the smash bags really way too heavy and they end up driving the handle too much.
Okay, got you.
That naturally, because in your peripheral vision, your body anticipates a larger collision,
Got
your
you.
brain naturally will get this kind of deceleration and pulling up force just more naturally anyway.
Yeah.
So that even if it's just doing some kind of drill on something that's larger like that, that's a great way of doing it. But I often find that to get the deceleration, one of the shots, the things that I very often try and do is I'll just get something like a pitching wedge or something like that. And let's say my normal distance with it is 150 yards, let's say.
Mhm.
I'll try and hit that maybe like 110, 120, and I'll just try and really kind of stop faster in my follow through, almost as if I'm kind of stopping at impact will be the way that it feels. I do a little bit of that. And another great way to do that would be I get an alignment stick
Yeah.
and I'll put something quite high in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I will swing as hard as I can, but I have to stop before I hit say, my golf bags there or something
Sure.
like that. And then I think that's probably the best way of educating yourself to swing hard, but then learn to slow a fast speed down, which I think then translates to driver a lot better because you're actually doing it at full speed. So realistically, anything that's getting you to brace harder is always a great way of training it.
I want to ask you to describe the towel thing because that's intriguing to me. But quickly, I gave a lesson yesterday to a guy putting, and
Yeah,
I had him try and cut off his follow through earlier. It was
yeah,
next to impossible for the guy because he was all follow through and no backswing, right?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I'd stuck two tees in the ground adjacent to the ball, and he'd strike the tees, and the ball would go twice as far as he was expecting to. And this blew his mind. And I'm like, well, you're just accumulating speed at the right time now, as opposed to off
Yeah,
balls left.
absolutely.
So you could try this on the green as well. But the towel, you just roll up a towel, put on the ground, and hit it, or what do
Yeah,
you?
so I literally just get myself. I'll be honest, it used to be a smash bag, but they just rip all the time. So I got sick of having to buy new ones,
Oh,
especially at the speeds that I swing it at.
uh-huh.
So yeah, so all we do just literally just a kind of mid-sized towel. A lot of in the US, obviously, I use those Gatorade towels, that kind of size.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just all it does then is just it allows me to do numerous things. It allows me to just focus on what I'm trying to feel in my motion. It takes the problem golfers react, and I think a lot of the times when it comes to coaching we forget about human reaction. And unfortunately on a golf ball, if somebody sees a ball go left, no matter what they're trying to work on, they're always going to try and react to the last shot. So if they see it go left, they'll try and not do that again. And I like them to have a safe environment, let's say, in which they can focus in on exactly what we're trying to do without the outcome.
Yeah.
So it does that amazingly well for you. And like I said, but because of the collision size of it, just by hitting it, your left side just works so much more efficiently. And the left side or the lead side in the golf swing, generally in most golfers, is going to be slightly weaker. Most people play golf, whatever dominant hand they are, they tend to play that way. I have, go on, mate, sorry.
No, no,
Um,
no.
I
I
was
was sort of saying, yeah, because if I'm a right hander, I'm playing golf with with the left side being in the dominant side. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly, and most people are underdeveloped, and I think doing a lot of you'll see on the channel. I luckily, my mentor Gary Barter, he the from the first session I ever had with him was a lot of left arm work, and I think when you look back at a lot of the Hogan stuff back in the past, and you read some of the things that he put out into old Golf Digest magazines and things like that, he talks a lot about the left arm leading the show, or the lead arm leading the show for stability. And I think so many people don't control their left sides well enough because we don't use it often enough. And I think that has the biggest impact on club face stability, having the ability to slow down because the lead side is the braking system at the end of the day. And I think by training that and if you can get that to work more efficiently without even having to think about it because you're just using a larger object, I
Mm.
just don't know why you wouldn't take that opportunity.
You got me thinking here about your statement with the lead side, being the stabilizer. I'm contending here, so humor me, and I'd love your insight. When people hear that, they sort of go, "Yeah, I get you." But then they're all thinking down in the wrist, and I don't think a lot of folks are thinking up in the shoulder and the bicep and the lat and that
Yeah.
side, which is actually doing all the supporting of this weak wrist area down there through contact. Are you feeling me?
Absolutely, mate. It's like the whole left side. And I remember I used to go a lot for kind of body testing and stuff, and they would put a mirror down the center of you.
Yeah.
And if you were just looking at yourself in the mirror, you wouldn't see much of a difference. As soon as they split your body, it would be your pec, your eye, your cheek. You'd see that everything's slightly less
Huh.
strong as the right hand side. Honestly, I've never seen anything like it when I did it. My left side of my body just looked completely different to my right. And I was having an issue, Mark, with morning tea times when I was playing,
All right. Okay.
and it was just very obvious that I wasn't hitting the ball as good in the morning, and I could not for the life of me work out why. And I remember a couple of weeks I tried caffeine shots and things. Maybe I'm not waking up well enough, and I started speaking to a guy who was like a neuroscientist, and he said to me in the mornings when you first arrive on site, go to the golf chipping green and chip 20 balls left-handed in a morning tee time.
Hmm.
And I could not believe it. Within a month, my morning tee times were as good as my afternoon. And what was happening was that because I'm less developed in that side, I'm less strong, whatever you want to call it, my left side, just by waking it up to start the day, all of a sudden the stability in the face. Honestly, it's crazy. And I'm kind of like sat there and I'm like, this is a bit kind of golf hippie-ish, I guess, but it was things that my brain would never allow I would have never have thought to do that.
Yeah.
And this guy luckily kind of told me to do that. And a lot of my training is based around left side training anyway at that time. So it just, I guess it kind of just tagged along to that very nicely. But my scoring it improved 2.2 shots around in the morning over a month.
I can imagine thousands of folks after this show going
Yeah,
practice with a
going to
left.
be practicing with the lead hands,
Well, look,
chipping.
jokes aside, John Daly to this day does it. Hideki
Yeah.
Matsuyama, listen to me, people. The first part in his warm up routine, he hits balls with the left hand only like 40, 50 yards, 30 to 50 yards, then a few with the right hand, then he goes. So before he hits a full shot, quickly, the mechanics of the drill roll up the towel in a bundle down
Yep.
where the ball position would be.
Right there, absolutely.
All
Yeah,
right.
simple as that. And then obviously there's a lot of drills that I use on the towel, so it's not as simple as one drill. It's
Yeah.
there's probably God, I'm trying to think how many we have on our network now. There's probably 60 to 70 different things you could be doing on there depending on what your problems are. But essentially all I'm doing is I'm doing whatever drill I'd be potentially doing on a ball. I'm essentially just doing it on a towel instead.
Sensational. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So Fleetwood deceleration. Okay. Now we'll go to the other side of the thing. And I said to you, who else? And you're like, how about Bryson and speed?
Yeah.
Now just I'll tee you up and let you go. Bryson's been on the show.
Yeah.
When Bryson won in Las Vegas, then did the winner interview, I was the guy. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I said to him, so this is in the fall. What's next? And he goes, oh, when you see me again, I'm going to be a different guy. I'm changing everything. And I was like, you psycho. And he goes, no, for real, I'm coming back a new guy next year. And you just wait and see. And he came back massive. He just went and ate everything he could see. He was working out 24/7.
Yeah.
And he just bludgeoned the golf ball. He hit it as hard as he could because of extra mass.
Yeah.
Then he had one or two health scares, and he learned to do it more efficiently with Kyle Berkshire. Off you go.
Yeah, so I remember watching a video of him from when he first came back in, and I remember him talking a lot about pulling hard from the top.
Yeah, yeah.
And at the time, I was a little bit like, you're going to get a lot of people struggling with spine angles if they start doing that, and you're going to get a lot of very hurt right obliques.
Every single one of the club golfers, man. And where do you think those golf shots are going? Off to the weak side, as sure as I talk to you.
Every damn time.
Yeah,
Every time I see it all day, every day. Well, Brelson's told me to pull.
yeah,
The way I try and figure that out is that if I know that my arms weigh, let's say, I think it's somewhere around 13.5% of your body weight, I think it is. But obviously, you're going to add a club onto that as well. If you imagine that I've got my arms isolated over here and
yeah.
I had a 15 kilogram dumbbell or something like that in my right hand and I was to pull on that, I'm only going one way. No matter how much my intention's to
Yeah.
move this way, I'm just going to get what I would call obviously underneath.
Yeah.
And I think when people heard that, it's something that I've had to challenge quite a lot in lessons. And I'm so glad that I came across a video of him talking maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
And in this video, he's saying speed gathers. So he's very patient at the top. And as he moves across, then the club starts to pick up and then it goes. And when he said that, I was like, well, my life's going to become a lot easier now.
Mm.
Because
Well,
that's
look,
essentially what I talk about.
you know what I hear, and yeah, sort of the unwritten lesson that people can learn from Bryson. And I wrote a book with some of the insights from the best podcasts I've had, and he was one of those.
Yeah.
And he started the whole thing off with he goes, Occam's razor, Occam's razor. I'm like, yeah, he goes, the theory of finding the simplest way to get the most efficient result. He goes,
Yeah.
always searching for that. I'm always searching for that. And I'm paraphrasing naturally,
Yeah.
but that was the passion he was talking with. And I was like, here's a guy who was at that stage the top of the game, major champion, but he was always looking to get better.
Yeah.
And he was able to challenge his own biases,
Hmm.
his own accords, all this sort of stuff, because he realized, hold on, there could be a better way of gathering speed. Well, don't you think so many, and this is a lesson to learn from Bryson, where so many golfers are caught by their own mental beliefs and feels and misgivings, even, bad
Yeah.
information, instead of going, hold on, this is not working. Maybe I should be trying investigating somewhere else.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the fact that you've got a player of his ability that's capable to do that is, I think that just shows how great of a personality he is for the game. Like the fact that he's got that much humility that he's able to go, do you know what? pretty good at this game, but maybe there's a better way of doing it. And I think to have that internally is so, and I think a lot of players, because they have such an uber amount of talent, I often find that that also keeps people stuck in a certain place for possibly longer than they should when they are struggling with the tour, with the
Hmm.
guys on tour.
Yeah.
Because the problem is, even if their swing is not where it should be, they still have the ability to potentially even win and not really know how it's happened that week.
Yeah.
And they've just had a good week, but then the next week they're back to struggling a little bit again, and sometimes that keeps them on these journeys possibly for a little bit longer than they should. But when it comes to kind of amateurs, I can kind of understand it must be super difficult for them because a lot of guys maybe have experiences where they've gone for lessons, they don't really feel like they've achieved or got from it what they wanted. Like I hear that all the time when people come in, and a lot of the people that come in to see myself, it's because they like the fact that they perceive it to be quite more a lot more simple because it's drill based
Hmm.
and it's movement based. Don't get me wrong, Mark. There's probably a lot more technical thought and sleepless nights for myself that have gone into making it more simple because I was trying to make it more simple for my own career. But yeah, I think with the amateurs, I think a lot of them seem quite hesitant because maybe they feel like they've tried to make these changes and have maybe gone down the wrong rabbit holes for themselves. And I think that's why YouTube's probably as busy as it is because guys are trying to get information and find answers, but without having to pay for it, kind of thing. And I think, but again, I kind of understand that too. But yeah, I think there's a lot of guys that certainly get stuck in places longer than maybe they should because of that inability to do what Bryson's done there.
Yeah. Well, look, it's why this podcast exists. I want to introduce the bright minds like you to folks who might never see you because they're on the other side of the world, but then
Yeah,
also to help people to understand things because there's context to everything. And
absolutely.
like if you're watching YouTube, and that's why the conversations like this uncover more. Because if I'm just watching some tip on YouTube, it could be sexy as hell. I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's going to work, but it might not be right for me.
Yeah,
If you get where I'm going.
absolutely, mate. Yeah, and I think that's a big thing as well is that a good coach for me, when anybody first comes in, the first thing I do is shut up and I watch them hit balls for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
And but I'm not looking at what necessarily initially what their swing's doing. I'm listening. How does it sound off the turf? How does it sound off the face? Where's the ball starting? How's it curving? Is there anything in particular that's consistent within those first 20 balls somebody hits? And I think when you have the ability to kind of do it that way, I think that's when people tend to, when you can do that, then watch the swing, isolate a part of it, then say to somebody, okay, well, if you do it more like this, the ball will do this.
yeah.
That's when a lot of the trust comes.
That's why you're busy. That's why the youth are seeking you out. Okay. In the interest of time, we've talked about Rory a little bit, but I pitched Scotty Scheffler at you, and I saw your eyes light up. Uh,
Yeah, I
You've
love
done
it.
you've done a few things on creating space in the golf swing, and every golfer is looking for space because most folks are jamming themselves up unbeknownst to themselves, I believe.
Absolutely.
So talk about what we can learn from Scotty Scheffler, please.
I think I'm not sure there'll be a player that goes down in history as that will read as lateral as Scotty does in the way down, particularly in the downswing.
Hmm.
And I think we kind of touched on it earlier about the different forces in the golf swing. And I think to be able to do that, you've got to be making space in the backswing. You're not going to be on top of the golf ball and then moving 8 inches forwards. Because if he did, he's going to do well to make good contact with it. So I think that the ability to find space and time in the backswing for me is possibly the biggest, if not, it would definitely probably go down as the biggest part of the golf swing because, as I said to you earlier on, if you're not in a good space in the backswing, you then can't move into the space that you've created in the downswing, which is essentially what I believe Scotty does very, very well.
Yeah.
And from there, then all of those things that we're going back to the Tommy's follow through, those things can't happen because you're having to get out the way of the golf ball as opposed to moving onto it. So space and time in the backswing, I talk about it all the time, particularly with the tour pros, is that generally with golfers, if you give them space and time, most people have enough athleticism to be able to reorganize things on the way down.
Hmm.
If you lose that space, generally you're in a rescue mission to try and get the club back on ball and keep it somewhere on the planet. So yeah, so I think with him, I think he's probably going to be one of the best examples. And even what he does with his feet, he moves laterally for so long that the foot has to move that way. And his hips are so level until right at the last second when the energy of the club then just pulls him around with it.
Yeah.
And I think when you watch him swing, honestly, I think it's brilliant. I
Mm.
really do. He obviously hits the ball. He's going to go down as being one of the best ever, isn't he? At
Oh,
some point, he's got to enter that conversation in the next couple of years if he
it's
keeps doing what he's doing.
guys on the doorstep. The space and time in the backswing.
Mhm.
A drill, please, because you've teased people with it. They're like, I want to do that. So how do we go about doing
Yeah.
that? What's
So a couple of things that I try and find space with people two ways. I try and find it laterally and I try and find it vertically. So there's a couple of great variations that you can do. The most simple one being, and I generally use them for different issues of why people lose space. So in the backswing, there's a couple of things that people do. So you can kind of lose your height through losing your spine. So if you tilt slightly towards a target, that will keep pressure to left. You've
Let me
got
stop you. Tommy
okay.
Fleetwood, every warm-up session has Ian Finnis hold a stick against his chin because he tends to tilt towards the golf ball in his backswing. Okay,
There
so you
you go.
do the same
Well,
thing.
it's funny. So it all links together pretty good, huh?
Uh-huh.
But and then you look at, then you have kind of, you can lose your pelvis, which when I say that, that means that my left pelvis will drop below the height of my right one too early.
Okay.
Again, keeps pressure on the left. So again, like I said to you earlier, we have different drills, but to find space, the most simple way of doing it, to find space laterally would be to hit a golf ball or a towel by literally just taking a small step to your right hand side to start the golf swing.
Mhm.
That then is going to guarantee you probably 2.5 to 3 inches of space. And the great thing about it then is it just incentivizes you to then want to recenter back onto the golf ball. If you then,
And then your point is well founded because when you do that, the recentering doesn't move past the ball prematurely.
no,
It's moving you up to where you should
it
locate.
moves you onto the ball. And I find people are striking the ball the best when they're kind of behind but on top of it. That's the way
Yeah.
that I would explain it. Whereas I think a lot of golfers, to me, when I communicate with them on the lesson tee, is you tend to find a lot of golfers get a little bit stuck between ahead and on top. So the center's being out and ahead but being on top of it. And also being behind it but underneath it. I think they're two very, very different things. I like my centers to be slightly behind the ball, but very kind of angular towards it. I like to work through certain vectors and things like that. And the great thing about that drill is that by giving yourself that space, naturally, if you put anybody with any athleticism more behind it and they see a ball up there somewhere, they're not all of a sudden going to kind of fall
Yeah.
out the way of it. They're going to go, well, hang on a minute, the ball's up there. I'm going to go get the thing.
Yeah.
And it incentivizes that on the way down. And I think for me, that's what the backswing is. It's can we put you in a position that incentivizes you to want to work down towards the ground and back towards the golf ball.
Hmm. Love it. I could keep you forever, but I know I can't. This has been so good, and I know folks are going to want to find some more. But before I ask you for where they can contact you,
Yeah,
once in a while I ask guests to hit me with like a parting shot or something you know for sure. Now, I know you've played two sports at a very high level, and
yeah,
it is like I'm picturing you going, moving down and towards the golf ball, and I can picture you kicking a soccer ball off the ground right now, and
yeah,
I can picture you being having space, running up to it, lowering, releasing, catching the ball in front of you, launching at the perfect trajectory and spin.
yeah,
So I see the whole thing athletically.
yeah.
So with that being said, there's got to be a little something. Hit us with like something you know for sure.
Something I know for sure.
Yeah.
I would probably say almost what we just touched on, and that is that when we've had as many people as we've come through here as we have, I can guarantee you when people are worried about sway or worried about motion, that the more of it you create, the more ability you'll have to get back onto the golf ball correctly.
I love it. All right. Now, where do they find you? Please share the websites or the social media.
Okay, so my social media, my Instagram is Liam Robinson Golf Coaching. And then the best place to find my content and material, or obviously the ability to communicate with me, I actually own a community called Tour Golf Network. Within that, you have an app which documents all of my drills, so all the towel drills, all of anything. We also have a lot of other people on there. So we have Aim Point, Jamie Donaldson's on there doing all the putting content. We have people like Brandon, who's one of my players, who gives an insight into tour life on there. And then we have a community page on Facebook and stuff as well, in which I'm in the group that people go in, and we have about 1,500 people in there at the moment who are all kind of doing the drills, and they're all talking to each other, and I get involved. And then we have amazing community days. We actually have our next one on Sunday. So that's Tour Golf Network, which we call TGN. So
Sure. And
yeah,
that's tourgolfnetwork.com, or is that just on
it
Facebook?
is tourgolfnetwork.com, mate. Yeah, and in there, then you'll be able to kind of find your way onto the app, and hopefully, obviously, be communicating with myself in Facebook in very shortly.
You're doing God's work, my boy. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, mate. I really appreciate you having me on.